European History, The Eastern Question 1815. The Eastern Question 1815 in its 1878. The Eastern Question was one of the main issues which disturbed Europe between 18,151,878. From the 14th century to the 17th century, the Ottoman Empire Turkey had entered Europe and conquered the people of the Balkan region/state/peninsula. Such people/states included the Bulgarians, Albanians, the Serbs, Romanians, Hungarians, Greeks, Yugoslavia, Wallachia, Moldavia, and Macedonia, among others. It also crossed and conquered some of the Asiatic races in northern part of Africa like Libya, Algeria, Egypt, Tunisia, Crete, Ionian Islands, Malta, and Cyprus, among others. During the time when the empire was expanding, most of the conquered states were Orthodox Christians who had been conquered by Muslims, but at the same time they were harsh and oppressive. The Ottoman Empire was therefore made up of numerous subject nationalities with different backgrounds, cultures, norms, interests, languages, religions, etc., and the mass of the Muslim Turks oppressed them with all sorts of injustices, so this caused confusion and mistrust in the empire, leading to conflicts. The Ottoman Empire expanded and reached its apex, and it became a threat to other European states like Britain, Austria, and Russia, among others, because of its aggressiveness and expansionism. The Eastern Question, therefore, was a term used to describe the various attempts by the conquered states to attain their independence, leading to the decline of the Ottoman Empire. Or, the Eastern Question referred to the period of the 19th century that was characterized by unrest, conflicts, turmoil, and confusion that existed in the empire, emanating from Turkey's expansion and its failure to contain the diversities. Because of the existence of different people, races, cultures, customs, etc., these people could not stay together in one way or the other peacefully. So they started struggling. European History, The Eastern Question 1815. Was it justifiable to describe Turkey as the sick man of Europe during the 19th century? The nature and composition/size of the empire, it was too big to be controlled effectively. It was heterogeneous, with different people of different nationalities with different interests, customs, and religions. These people were conquered by force and not by plebiscite. They proved to be the source of trouble, especially when they started demanding for independence. They made the empire unstable, and they could not control the nationalities. That's why Nicholas referred to the empire as the sick man of Europe. The continuous decline of the Ottoman Empire in the administration and the loss of military strength, the army that was much needed for the survival of the empire was also weak, so the administration and the army could not keep the empire intact, and the leaders overthrown or conquered started acting independently. Ali Pasha of Shemina, who declared himself independent and made the empire sick. The outbreak of a number of revolts or rebellions, e.g., the Greek War of Independence, 1821, Syrian Question 1831, Crimean War of 1854, and failure by Ottoman Empire to suppress these rebellions showed that Turkey was really the sick man of Europe. The crumbling or collapsing of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey was crumbling at rapid speed as far as her imperial foreign integrity was concerned in relation with other former colonies of the empire started breaking away one after the other and declaring themselves independent or being conquered by other powers, yet Turkey had no capacity to control them, and indeed Turkey was a sick man. The maladministrative or bad policies of the empire qualified her to be called the sick man of Europe. Turkish administration at home was becoming unpopular because of its bad policies, i.e., the administration was oppressive, exploitative, with corrupt officials who embezzled taxpayers' money and made life difficult for the conquered people, which caused a number of rebellions in the empire, a sign of a sick man. The weakness and the incompetence of the 19th century sultans/leaders of the Ottoman Empire, e.g., Sultan Muhammad XI and Sultan Abdulmajid, they were weak and incompetent to effectively control the empire. They remained true to themselves, and this widened the gap between them and the conquered people, a symptom of a sick man. Economically, the Ottoman Empire was exploitative through its taxes and tributes, and what worsened the situation was the corrupt nature of the Turkish officials who embezzled the funds which would have been used to better the lives of the conquered people. Even the methods used to collect taxes left a lot to be desired, satisfying the view that Turkey was sick. In addition, there was economic decline of the empire. Before the 17th century, the economy of the Ottoman Empire was strong and stable. It controlled trade on the European History, The Eastern Question 1815. Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea. It also controlled all strategic places of the world, e.g. Constantinople port, but during the 19th century the empire started collapsing in commerce and trade, seafaring because of corruption and embezzlement, and because of the rise of Britain due to industrialization. It took over economic activities which had been monopolized by Turkey. This led to loss of wealth, a sign of a sick man. Religiously, the Muslim Turks discriminated and underlooked their subjects who were Orthodox Christians, and on a number of occasions they referred to them as inferiors/infidels, and when the Christians organized a rebellion, the Muslim masters suppressed them with a lot of brutality, and this drew the attention of the big powers, like Russia, who intervened to safeguard the Christians. Indeed, Turkey was sick. The role/influence of leading personalities also made Turkey to be referred to as the sick man of Europe, e.g. Alexander Hypsipyle and Cambyses. They were Greeks. They wrote and greatly criticized the oppressive and exploitative Turkish rule. Even Nicholas I referred to Turkey as the sick man of Europe. They created a sense of resistance among the conquered people against the Turkish rule, e.g., the Greek War of Independence. In 1839, Turkey invaded Egypt, and the effects of this invasion were disastrous, i.e., Turkey was defeated by the Egyptian forces and was forced to surrender, and in the process, they lost Syria to Egypt not until Britain intervened, gave back Syria to Turkey, but all the same, Turkey had already shown signs of a sick man. During the Greek War of Independence, the Sultan of Turkey sought assistance from Mehmet Ali of Egypt to defeat the Greeks and promise him territories of Damascus and Syria. Unfortunately, the combined forces of Turkey and Egypt were defeated by the Greeks, and this made the Sultan refuse to honor the promise he had made to Ali. This forced Mehmet Ali to attack Turkey, and in the process, Turkey lost Damascus and Syria, satisfying the view that Turkey was really a sick man of Europe. European interests in the Balkan Peninsula made her to be referred to as a sick man of Europe. This was so because these powers had hidden interests in the empire, e.g., Russia under Nicholas I wanted Turkey to collapse so as to take control over vital strategic places, areas in the Mediterranean Sea and Black Sea. Russia also wanted to share in the monopolized trade by Britain and converted Constantinople and the control of international trade on international waters, Mediterranean and Black Seas. Russia also claimed to be a guardian of all Orthodox Christians all over the world and the guardian of Slavonic races in Europe, and wanted to see them free. It was against this background that Nicholas I referred to Turkey as the sick man of Europe. Britain never wanted the sick man to die, but also never wanted any other power to enter into the Ottoman Empire, especially if the power was Russia. This was so because Britain wanted to monopolize the trade in the Balkan region and control strategic parts of Constantinople. European history, the Eastern Question, 1815. France involved herself in the Ottoman Empire because she wanted to promote her economic commercial interests in the empire, promote her foreign glory, share in the monopolized trade by Britain, protect the Catholics, but above all, protect the holy places of Bethlehem and Jerusalem. Austria also wanted strategic positions in the Ottoman Empire, e.g., River Danube. Austria also hated Russia's expansionism in the Balkan, and above all, Austria wanted to gain back her prestige/position in Europe, so it can be said that the interest of the big powers in the Balkan region in one way or the other contributed to Turkey to be referred as the sick man of Europe. Summary: the nature and composition size of the empire, continuous decline of the empire, outbreak of rebellions, administrative weakness, bad policy/maladministration, weakness of Ottoman leader Sultan, exploitative nature of the empire, economic decline of the empire, religious conflicts in the empire, Turkish invasion of Europe, influence of personalities, interest of big powers, the declining strength of Turkey's imperial foreign integrity, Turkey's involvement in disastrous wars like Syrian Question and Greek War of Independence. The Greek War of Independence of 1821–1832. The Greek War of Independence was the first event of the Eastern Question, which took place in 1821. The Greeks were among the subjects of Turkey and belonged to the Slavonic race, something which kept them close to the Russians. By the time the Greeks organized their revolution, the conditions of living were not too bad because they had some freedoms like freedom of worship, education, free from compulsory military service, and had land, among others. Despite the above, the Greeks revolted because of a number of factors. Causes of the Greek War of Independence. European history, the Eastern Question, 1815. Religious questions/differences. The hanging/execution of the Orthodox leader on Easter Sunday. Outbreak of rebellions in other areas of the Ottoman Empire. The desire to revive their past glory. The role played by the Greek Secret Society, Society of Friends. The role of the Greek leaders. The role of the Greek merchants. The influence of the 1789 French Revolution. The weakness of the Vienna Settlement. Unfair taxation system. Rise of the forces of liberalism and democracy. The role played by the Greek philosophers. Why and how were the Greeks able to attain their independence by 1832? The desire for independence caused the Greek War of Independence. The Greeks were not happy with being under the Turkish foreign rule because it was oppressive. It enslaved them and denied them their basic rights, so they organized a rebellion/war intended to liberate them from the Turkish harsh rule and attain independence. The harsh policies of the Turkish governors or administrators caused the Greek War of Independence. The governors who were Muslims were more oppressive, despised the Greeks who were Orthodox Christians, discriminated them, denied them big posts, and this angered the Greeks and forced them to get rid of the bad rule of the Turkish governors. The political/economical collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Turkey in the 19th century. Slowly but surely, the empire had started on its systematic journey to decline. This decline of the empire encouraged the Greeks to revolt because the empire had lost the ability to suppress rebellions which had occurred within the empire, and the Greeks exploited this weakness, leading to the Greek War of Independence. The influence/encouragement given to the Greeks by the big European powers, e.g., Britain, caused the Greek War of Independence. For a long time, Russia had given support to the Greeks' revolt against their master. This was so because Russia wanted Turkey to collapse, and that is why Nicholas I referred to her as the sick man of Europe. More so, Russia wanted to set her foothold influence in the Ottoman Empire. Russia also wanted to take part in the monopolized trade by Britain. But above all, Russia shared a lot in common with the Greeks' religion and race, so the support of big powers to the Greeks caused the Greek War of Independence. Religious differences between Greek Orthodox Christians and Muslim Turks. Some historians say that the main cause of the Greek War of Independence was not political but religious. The Turkish, who were the controllers of the Greeks, were predominantly European History, the Eastern Question, 1815. So the sharp difference between the two groups of people made it difficult for the two to reach a compromise, and it made the war occur. The hanging of the Orthodox leader on Easter Sunday caused the Greek War of Independence. The incident which sparked off the war was about Turkish officials who hanged the Orthodox leader on Easter Sunday, accusing him of inciting resistance against Turkish officials. It was a minor religious issue which turned out to be political, and it caused the war. The outbreak of rebellions in other areas of the empire, the Greeks exploited this chance to wage a war against his masters, who was Mehmet Ali, who had conquered some parts from Turkey's Serbia revolt. This development encouraged the Greeks to organize a rebellion and achieve their independence. Social injustices committed by the Turks against the Greeks, such as persecution, imprisonment of the Orthodox Christians. Influence of exiled Greeks in Britain, France and Russia with their liberal ideologies, especially the elites, merchants and people like Ypsilanti. The desire to revive their past glory, culture, language, beliefs and customs. It is said that the Greeks were the first people to be civilized. They were respected in many ways, had a unique culture and generally progressive. However, when they were conquered by the Turkish Muslims, they started referring to them as inferiors. The educated Greeks could never accept this, so they organized the war so as to revive their culture, pride, conscience, and attain independence. The role played by the Greek secret society known as the Society of Friends. This society or movement encouraged the growth of the spirit of nationalism and the desire to defeat the Turkish by Greeks. The movement revived the old cultural glory, promoted unity, mobilized the masses, and made them ready for the war against their masters, the Turkish. The role played by the Greek leaders was instrumental in causing the Greek War of Independence. These leaders were Alexander, Hypsilanti, and Capolucius. The two encouraged the Greeks to rise against the Turkish masters, and it were these two who started the rebellion in the provinces of Moldavia and Wallachia, and this sparked off a European History, the Eastern Question, 1815. Greeks could not escape such effects, and it were these effects of the revolution which inspired the Greeks to revolt. The weakness of the Vienna settlement and the Congress system. By the time the Greeks organized their War of Independence, the settlement and the Congress had started showing cracks of collapse. It should be remembered that the settlement and Congress aimed at stopping the revolution so as to maintain peace and stability in Europe, but at the same time some members of the settlement and Congress supported the revolutions, e.g. Russia. Such weaknesses gave an open chance to the Greeks to revolt. Desire for a number of reforms, e.g. education, economy, and fair taxation system. The Turkish administration imposed heavy taxes onto the Greeks. Even the method of collecting their taxes were equally bad. People were mistreated and their property confiscated for failure to pay the tax, and what made matters worse was that the tax collected ended up in the hands of the corrupt Turkish tax officials. This caused resentment among the Greeks, who organized the war to free themselves. The rise of the forces of liberalism across the European continent caused the Greek War of Independence. These forces were strong, and they inspired the Greek masses to revolt so as to be free in their country and stop the mistreatment caused by the Turkish administrators. The influence of the Greek philosophers, who through their writings inspired fellow Greeks to rebel against the oppressive and exploitative administration. Such philosophers included Cloras, who wrote and spread nationalistic feelings among the Greeks, leading to the Greek War of Independence. The corrupt nature/tendencies of the Turkish officials, who were exploitative and oppressive to the Greek peasants. The course of the Greek War of Independence. The Greeks succeeded in staging a revolt against their Turkish masters, mainly because the Ottoman Empire Turkey had become a sick man of Europe, and the Greeks exploited this opportunity to organize war against the Turks and attain European History, the Eastern Question, 1815. The Greeks continued with the war against Turkey, and the Turkish were defeated because of the barbaric nature of Hypsilanti. The Turkish leaders organized a war of revenge and killed about 30,000 Greeks in the city of Shiraz and about 27,000 in the provinces of Macedonia. It was during this incident that the Greek patriot/Orthodox leader was hanged on the Easter Sunday, and this drew the attention of the big powers. After seeing that it was hard to defeat the Greeks, the Sultan of Turkey sought assistance from Mehmet Ali of Egypt under his son Ibrahim Pasha, but the joint force of Egypt and Turkey was defeated by the Greeks. The Tsar of Russia felt sympathetic to the Greeks and intervened, but Britain did not want Russia to intervene alone on the side of the Greeks, so in 1827 a conference was called in London, and it was during this meeting that Greece was declared independent, but still under the lordship of Turkey, but Austria and Prussia refused to sign this treaty because it would lead to the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. This divided the Congressmen and the Congress system, leading to its collapse. After realizing that Austria and Prussia were supporting Turkey, the Turkish continued occupying some Greek provinces of more, not until a joint force of Britain, France and Russia attacked Turkey, and at the Battle of Navarino Bay, Turkey was completely defeated. In 1832, another treaty was called in London, and it was this meeting which declared Greece completely independent without the Prince of Bavaria as their king, and to achieve the above, the Greeks used the following measures. They revived their past cultural glory, i.e., they came up with the mode of language only known to them, and it helped them to forge unity. Roman 2. They adopted and used nationalistic, liberal, and revolutionary ideas of Western Europe, i.e., the French Revolution of 1789 ideas, liberty, equality, and fraternity, which they used to mobilize one another. Roman 3. They also formed a secret society known as the Society of Friends. It brought about unity, helped to identify the enemy, mobilized the masses, and aroused the spirit of nationalism. Roman 4. The Greeks used the support of other European powers to achieve their independence, and they greatly relied on the support of Russia, Britain, and France, especially during the treaty signing in the London Conference. European History of the Eastern Question 1815. Summary. The war started in the provinces of Moldavia and Wallachia in 1821. It was led by Prince Alexander Hitlerante. He was cruel/barbaric and killed many Muslim Turks. He lost the support of Russia because of his barbaric ways. The Sultan of Turkey revenged and killed over 57,000 Greeks and the Orthodox leader on Easter Sunday. The war drew the attention of the big powers, leading to the London Conference of 1827. Greece was declared semi-independent. Turkey continued to control Greece until the Battle of Navy Bay. In 1832, the London Conference declared Greece completely independent. Prince Otto of Bavaria became the first king of Greece. They revived their past Greek cultural glory to attain independence. They adopted revolutionary ideas of Western Europe. They formed the secret society, i.e., the Society of Friends. They used the support of big powers, e.g., Russia, Britain, and France. Why and how were the Greeks able to attain their independence? The effects/significance of the Greek War of Independence. The Greek War of Independence, which started in 1821, ended in 1832, and this war had a number of effects which included the following. It was the Greek War of Independence which led to the establishment of an independent Greek state free from Turkish foreign rule, and for the first time the Greeks were under a Greek leader, President Prince Otto of Bavaria, in 1832. The Greeks for a long period of time had been under the Turkish control, which was oppressive and exploitative, but because of the Greek War of Independence, the Greeks were able to free themselves from the oppressive rule of the Turks. In other words, they attained their basic rights. The Greek War of Independence marked the first phase of the Eastern Question, and it was this event which marked the beginning of the disintegration/collapse of the Ottoman Empire, showing that Turkey was really a sick man of Europe. It was the Greek War of Independence which marked the final collapse of the Congress. European History of the Eastern Question 1815. Prussia supported Turkey. Such divisions weakened the Congress system, leading to its collapse. France lost the support of the great powers because he had supported Mehmet Ali of Egypt and was excluded in the later meetings. The Greek War of Independence exposed the European interests in the Balkan region, especially Russia, which had a lot of interest in the Ottoman Empire, and Russia wanted to see Turkey collapse so as to set her foothold in the region to satisfy her political, social, and economic interests. Louis Philippe and France lost support among the masses, and European powers having supported the wrong side. This contributed to his downfall. It was the Greek War of Independence which led to the rise and growth of the spirit of nationalism among the Balkan races. They learnt lessons from the Greeks, and they started demanding for their independence, e.g., Serbians, Syrians, among others. The Greek War of Independence led to the occurrence of future conflicts/wars among big powers. It should be remembered, since the days of Napoleon I, big powers had never fought any major war, but the Greek War of Independence caused future wars, e.g., Crimean War of 1854–1856, which was fought by the big powers. The Greek War of Independence resulted into massive loss of lives on either side, i.e., many Greeks were killed by the Turkish officials and many Turkish were killed by the Greeks, e.g., 30,000 Greeks in the province of Wallachia, 27,000 in the province of Macedonia, and there was property destruction as a result of this war. The Greek War of Independence swept away Islamic influence and cultures from the Greeks and led to the revival of the ancient Greek cultural practices. This war intensified conflicts between Britain and Russia over the Balkan region, leading to the Straits Convention of 1841 and the Crimean War of 1854–1856. It was the Greek War of Independence which inspired the 1830 and 1848 revolutions in Europe, which were aiming at attaining either national unity/independence or liberal reforms. European History of the Eastern Question 1815. It led to the signing of the Treaty at Adrianople in 1829, which concluded the Greek War of Independence. It was the Greek War of Independence 1821–1832 which marked the beginning of the Second phase of the Eastern Question, i.e., the Syrian Question 1831-1840. It exposed the hidden interests of the big powers in the Balkan state, e.g., exposed Britain's double standards, Russia's claims of protecting Orthodox Christians, Britain's protection of her economy, interests against Austria and Prussia's non-intervention. Summary. Inspired the 1830 and 1848 revolutions in Europe, led to the establishment of the independent Greek state. The Greeks attained their basic rights, marked the first phase of Eastern Question, marked the beginning of the Ottoman Empire, marked the final collapse of the Congress system, exposed European interests in the Balkan region, led to the rise and growth of nationalism among Balkan states, led to the occurrence of future conflicts, e.g., the Crimean War, resulted into massive loss of lives, swept away Islamic influence and culture from the Greeks,